The princess expected him to beg. Instead, the human walked away. Ethan Cole stepped out of the small shuttle onto the smooth, shining floor of the Velari spaceport. He took a deep breath and looked around. Everything was large and bright. The walls glowed with a soft blue light, and tall pillars rose toward the ceiling, which seemed almost as high as the sky. He had never been to another planet before, let alone one ruled by an alien empire that had dominated this part of the galaxy for hundreds of years. He adjusted his suit, straightened his posture, and began to walk toward the main building. The Velari guards noticed him immediately. They were taller than humans, with slim, long limbs and faces that seemed delicate but cold. Their eyes were large and shone faintly green. They made no sound as they moved, but Ethan could feel their gaze on him. He stayed calm, keeping his hands at his sides and his expression polite. Inside the main building, the hall stretched farther than Ethan could see. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. This was the moment he had prepared for. Humanity had sent him here to negotiate with Princess Lyra, the ruler of the Velari Dominion. She was young, but her reputation was fierce. Stories told that she expected any human or outsider to beg for mercy, to kneel before her and promise loyalty without question. Ethan did not kneel. That had been made very clear to him before the journey. Humans did not beg. Humans asked for respect, and if they did not receive it, they would stand tall anyway. He walked with careful steps, noticing the small details. The floor was smooth but warm, as if it had been designed to make visitors feel slightly uneasy. The walls were decorated with tapestries that showed battles humans had never seen. Ships with strange shapes and weapons unlike anything in the Sol system were painted across the cloth. The scenes were vivid, almost alive. Finally, Ethan reached the doors of the council chamber. They were enormous, made of a metal that shimmered silver and blue. He paused for a moment, thinking about what was to come. He was about to meet a princess who believed humans were weak, who expected him to beg. He felt a strange calm. He had trained for this. He had studied the Velari for years, learning how they thought, how they acted, and how they judged outsiders. The doors opened silently. Ethan stepped inside. The room was even bigger than the hall, and at the far end, elevated on a platform, sat Princess Lyra. She was smaller than the stories had made her out to be, almost delicate, with pale skin that seemed to glow slightly. Her hair was silver and long, flowing like liquid, and her eyes were a sharp violet. She wore a gown that shimmered with tiny lights like stars in the night sky. "Welcome, human," she said, her voice soft but commanding. The entire room fell silent. Aliens of many shapes and sizes, the council members, watched him with interest. "Thank you, Princess Lyra," Ethan replied, keeping his voice steady. He took a small bow, polite but not submissive. That was all he would give. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile, but her eyes were sharp. She had expected him to collapse on his knees, to look terrified, to beg her for mercy or alliance. Instead, he was calm, confident, and human. That calmness annoyed her more than anything else. "Humans are bold," she said, "or foolish, perhaps both. You come to my court and speak as if you belong here. Tell me, what does your species want?" Ethan took a deep breath. "We seek a partnership," he said clearly. "We do not seek to serve. We want to share knowledge, trade, and maintain peace. Humanity is willing to cooperate with those who respect us. We will not kneel, but we will stand beside those who stand as equals." The council members whispered among themselves. Ethan could hear their soft hisses and clicks. In Velari culture, speaking directly and firmly like this was considered almost rude. But humans did not speak like the Velari. Humans spoke with honesty. Ethan had been trained to speak truthfully, to make clear that humanity would not bow, no matter how strong their opponent seemed. Lyra studied him carefully. She had expected fear, panic, maybe even tears. She had expected him to beg. But here he was, standing tall, looking her in the eyes. That human audacity both angered and intrigued her. You speak of respect, Lyra said, but respect must be earned. Do you think your species has done enough to earn it? Ethan nodded. Not yet. But we are ready to prove it. Humanity will not be broken by threats. We learn quickly and we fight fiercely. If you doubt us, you will see soon enough. The council murmured again. The humans' boldness was shocking. No other species had ever dared speak to Lyra this way. Her advisors, who were older and more experienced, frowned and whispered warnings to her. One of them, a tall alien with scales that reflected the room's light, said, "Princess, you must remind him of his place. Humans are not your equals." Lyra raised a hand, silencing him. She wanted to see how far this human would go. Would he beg when faced with power? Would he show fear when threatened? She leaned forward slightly, her violet eyes studying Ethan like a hunter watching prey. "You speak of proving yourselves," she said. "Very well. Perhaps we should test your resolve. Humanity has few friends in the galaxy. You stand alone. Are you ready for the consequences of walking among wolves without fear?" Ethan remained calm. "I am ready," he said. "Humanity does not walk away from challenges. But we also do not bow. We choose how to face the galaxy with dignity." Lyra's eyebrows lifted. Her lips pressed together. This human, small and fragile-looking compared to the Velari, carried a strength that went beyond his body. She had seen warriors before, leaders, conquerors. But humans were unpredictable. That unpredictability made them dangerous. "Very well," she said. "You may speak to the council and ask for what you wish. But remember, humans, that words alone will not save you. The Velari Dominion does not suffer fools. If you fail, your species will pay the price." Ethan nodded. He did not flinch. He knew the risk. He knew that walking into this room meant putting himself and perhaps humanity in danger. But he also knew that fear would not serve him. Fear would make them weak. Confidence, clarity, and honesty were humanity's weapons. He looked around the chamber. The walls were decorated with the history of the Velari, their victories and conquests. The ceiling seemed impossibly high, and the lighting made the room feel both grand and cold. He noticed small details, like the way the light reflected off the floors, how the council members' eyes followed his every movement, and how the princess's gaze never left him. Ethan spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "We ask for peace. We ask for respect. And we ask for recognition that humanity is not weak. We are ready to prove ourselves through actions, not submission. We will not kneel, but we will stand tall and face the future with honor." Lyra leaned back slightly, studying him. Her lips curved in a faint smile, but her eyes narrowed. She expected him to waver. She expected hesitation. But Ethan's calm and steady demeanor told her one thing clearly. This human did not fear her. He did not fear the council. He did not fear the stories of Velari cruelty or power. He faced them all with an unshakable confidence that was both rare and fascinating. The council members whispered again, some leaning toward each other to exchange quiet words. Ethan could not understand them, but he could feel the tension. They were shocked, perhaps even worried. None of them had ever seen a human behave like this before. Lyra's voice cut through the whispers. "You are bold, human. I will give you that. Boldness, however, is not enough. You may stand, but your words mean little if your actions do not match them. Humanity will have to prove its worth through deeds, not speeches." Ethan nodded. "We understand, Princess Lyra. Humanity is ready to act. We will show you what we are capable of." The princess studied him a moment longer, her expression unreadable. She had expected him to beg, expected him to plead for mercy or favor. Instead, he had spoken like an equal. That choice, simple yet powerful, had shocked her. For a moment, she wondered if humans truly were different from any species she had encountered before. "You may leave the chamber," Lyra said finally. "We will see if your actions speak as loudly as your words." Ethan inclined his head politely. "Thank you, Princess. I will return with results you cannot ignore." As he turned and walked toward the doors, the council members' whispers grew louder. Lyra watched him go, her mind racing. She had expected a human to beg. Instead, the human had walked with his head held high, with quiet confidence, and had refused to show fear. That act, simple as it seemed, changed something in her. She did not know if she liked it, but she could not ignore it. Ethan stepped out of the chamber and onto the wide hall again. He felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. This was only the beginning. The princess had not been impressed, but she had been surprised. That was enough for now. Humanity had made its first statement, and it had been clear. They would not bow, they would not beg, and they would walk away with dignity intact. And with that, he began planning the next steps, knowing that the galaxy would soon learn that humans did not kneel, even when faced with the most powerful princess in the known universe. Ethan walked back to the shuttle bay, but his mind was not on the soft hum of the engines or the polished floors of the Velari Palace. He was thinking about the council, the princess, and what he had just faced. It had been more intense than any training exercise, more dangerous than any negotiation humans had attempted before. He had not begged. He had not bent to their will. And that simple choice had caused a ripple through the Velari court. Back on his shuttle, he sat quietly, looking out through the glass at the sprawling city below. The buildings stretched higher than any human city, their surfaces glowing with light that seemed alive. Ships moved smoothly between towers, some shaped like sharp diamonds, others long and thin, all moving without sound. It was beautiful, and it was a reminder that the Velari were powerful, perhaps more powerful than humans could yet imagine. He tapped his fingers on the metal table in front of him. Every moment mattered now. He could feel that the princess and her council were watching, even if they did not speak. Humans had a saying, actions speak louder than words. He hoped that humanity's actions would soon prove the truth of his words. Meanwhile, back in the council chamber, Lyra sat quietly, her eyes fixed on the doorway where Ethan had exited. The room was still buzzing with whispers. The council members were unsettled. One of them, a tall Velari with scales that glimmered like molten silver, said, "Princess, we cannot ignore this. No human has ever dared speak to you without fear." Lyra's violet eyes narrowed. "I know," she replied softly. "That is why I will watch. Humans are different. This one human, he carries himself with strength, not the strength of arms or ships, but a strength of will." Another council member leaned forward. "He is still just one man. The species is young, untested. One man cannot change the galaxy." "Perhaps," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "But sometimes one man can reveal the truth about an entire species. We will see." That night, Lyra could not sleep. She stared at the ceiling of her chambers, thinking about the human. He had spoken clearly, without fear, without begging, without hesitation. It was unusual. She was accustomed to rulers, soldiers, and diplomats from across the galaxy trembling before her. They all understood the consequences of crossing the Velari. Yet here was a human who walked away with his dignity intact, refusing to beg. She recalled his words, "Humanity does not walk away from challenges, but we also do not bow. We choose how to face the galaxy with dignity." She repeated them quietly in her mind. Dignity. That word, it carried a meaning she had not fully understood until now. The next day, reports began arriving from across the Velari Dominion. Human ships had been spotted near the border systems. Unlike other species, they did not retreat when threatened, and they did not seek alliance at first sign of power. Instead, they fortified their positions, prepared defenses, and trained their soldiers. The Velari spies reported every move, and the council grew anxious. Humans were not weak, they were not desperate. They were cautious, organized, and willing to act when necessary. Lyra summoned her advisors again. "The humans do not act like other species," she said. "They do not beg, they do not fear, and they do not flee. What is their plan?" One of her advisors, a short, stocky Velari with sharp eyes, spoke cautiously. "Princess, we do not know. Their behavior is unusual. It is as if they are calculating every step, waiting for the right moment to strike or to speak." Lyra leaned forward. "Or perhaps they are showing us their strength in a way we cannot yet understand. Their calm is not weakness. It is a choice, and choices can be dangerous." She paused, considering the possibility. She had faced many species, many diplomats, and many rulers. But humans were different. She did not yet understand them, and that made them unpredictable. Unpredictable could be dangerous, and dangerous could be powerful. Ethan, meanwhile, had begun coordinating with humanity's fleet. His calm in the palace had been only the first step. He needed to prepare for what the Velari might do next. Humans had learned from history. Showing weakness invited aggression. Standing firm invited respect, but only if backed by action. He reviewed reports from scouts and analysts. The Velari were observing humans closely, just as humans were observing them. Every movement mattered. Every decision could tip the balance of power. Ethan's mind worked quickly, making calculations and plans, but always keeping the core principle in mind. Dignity and strength must walk together. One of his colleagues, a young woman named Claire, spoke quietly as they watched the holographic map of Velari space. "Do you think Princess Lyra expected you to walk away?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "I think she expected fear, maybe begging. That is what her culture teaches. But humans are not taught to bow to power. We are taught to stand tall even against threats. She will learn that soon." Claire frowned. "Do you think she will respect us for it?" Ethan shrugged. "Respect is earned, and she will respect us, or she will regret underestimating us." Back on the Velari homeworld, Lyra called a meeting of the council in private. She wanted to understand more about humans, their intentions, and their limits. "We must watch them closely," she said. "They do not fear us. They do not beg. That is unusual, and it may be dangerous. Prepare all available intelligence. Track their movements. Every human ship, every communication. I want to know exactly what they are capable of." The council members moved quickly, using their networks of spies, scouts, and sensors. Lyra watched as reports came in. Humans were building defenses, training fleets, and preparing their people for possible conflict. Yet, at the same time, they were sending messages of peace. It was a combination the Velari had never seen before, strength and dignity paired with an offer of alliance. Lyra felt a strange respect mixed with irritation. Respect was unusual for her. It was something she had rarely given freely. But humans, through a single meeting and a simple act of walking away, had forced her to reconsider. They were not like other species. They were not weak, not desperate, and not easy to control. Days passed. Ethan continued his preparations while maintaining communications with the Velari under neutral terms. He made no threats, no demands, only careful observations and statements of human intent. His calm and confidence were deliberate. Humans did not need to yell to be heard. Humans did not need to threaten to be strong. They relied on their intelligence, strategy, and courage. During this time, Lyra sent small patrols to observe human colonies. She wanted to see if humans acted recklessly or with caution. The reports were consistent. Humans were organized, methodical, and careful. They trained, they protected, they planned. But they did not bow to any species, not even the Velari. One evening, Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, looking out at the glowing city below. Ships moved silently, buildings shimmered, and the stars stretched beyond sight. She thought of Ethan and the human species he represented. Their strength was not obvious at first glance. Their weapons were not the most advanced, their numbers not the largest. But their confidence, their determination, and their refusal to bow made them a force to be reckoned with. She remembered her advisor's warnings. Do not underestimate the humans. She had dismissed them at first, thinking the species young and fragile, but now she could not dismiss them. They were different, and different was dangerous. Meanwhile, Ethan began sending small delegations back to the Velari, but each one was carefully measured. He wanted the Velari to see humanity as equals, not subjects. He allowed no fear, no desperation, no weakness. Each delegation carried messages of peace and cooperation, but also of strength. Humanity would not kneel, but it would not be defeated. The Velari, confused by this approach, debated among themselves. One council member whispered, "They do not beg, they do not fear. Yet they act as if they can hold their own against us. How is this possible?" Another replied, "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought. Perhaps they have more strength than anyone realized." Lyra listened silently, watching her people grapple with the idea. She knew that humans were clever, adaptable, and strong in ways the Velari did not yet understand. That was why she could not sleep. That was why her curiosity was growing. And that curiosity, she realized, was dangerous for both sides. Ethan, aware of the attention he had caused, kept moving forward. He organized training exercises, diplomatic talks, and strategic planning sessions. Humanity would not act recklessly, but it would act. The galaxy would see that humans could stand alone if necessary. And through it all, Lyra watched. She observed each move, each choice, each action. She began to realize that the human had not just walked away from her chamber, he had walked into history. One simple act had set off a chain reaction that could change the way the Velari viewed humans forever. As Part 2 came to a close, both sides were preparing. Humans were ready, disciplined, and determined. Velari were cautious, curious, and slightly unsettled. And in the middle of it all, Princess Lyra could not forget the human who had refused to kneel. That refusal, simple as it seemed, had planted a seed. A seed that would grow, and one day, that seed might change the galaxy entirely. The galaxy outside human space was quiet, but tension ran high. Ethan Cole sat in the command room of the human flagship, the Liberty. Around him, officers moved quickly, coordinating ships, checking sensor readings, and updating maps. Despite the calm voices and quiet hum of machines, Ethan could feel the weight of what was about to happen. For years, humans had been preparing for contact with other species, but nothing had been like this. The Velari were a powerful empire. They ruled over dozens of star systems with speed, intelligence, and weapons far beyond what most humans had ever seen. And yet Ethan felt no fear. He had confidence not because he believed humans were stronger, but because he knew they were clever, adaptable, and disciplined. Reports came in from scouts. Velari patrols had approached human border worlds, moving quickly and silently. Humans had expected this. Defense fleets were already in position. Ethan studied the data carefully. Every Velari ship moved predictably, following patterns that could be analyzed. Humans were not faster, not more numerous, but they were smart. Every decision, every movement, every formation was calculated to defend without wasting strength. Claire, one of Ethan's trusted officers, leaned over a display table. "They are testing us," she said quietly. "The Velari. They want to see if we are weak, if we will break under pressure." Ethan nodded. "Let them watch. Humans do not bow, we do not beg, and we will not panic. Let them see what calm and preparation can do." Meanwhile, on the Velari homeworld, Princess Lyra observed the reports with growing interest. The human colonies were organizing, training, and preparing for defense. But there was no panic, no desperate calls for aid, no supplications. The humans acted like they knew what they were doing, and they did it with quiet confidence. Lyra turned to her advisors. "They do not act like other species," she said. "They do not tremble, they do not plead. They move carefully but decisively. They are unusual. Dangerous in ways I do not fully understand." One of the advisors, a tall Velari with smooth silver skin, spoke. "Princess, we have monitored human training. Their fleets are organized, their troops disciplined. Yet they are few. They should be afraid. Why are they not?" They are not weak, Lyra said softly. They do not fear because they rely on intelligence, courage, and unity. That is their strength. She paused, thinking, and it is something we have never faced before. Back on the Liberty, Ethan continued preparations. He had reviewed every report, every movement of the Velari fleet. He did not underestimate them, but he knew that the Velari often relied on fear to control other species. Humans did not fear. They planned, they acted, and they supported one another. That would be enough. The first contact happened near a small, unclaimed star system. Velari patrols approached cautiously, their long, silver ships moving in formation. The humans did not fire first. They waited, sensors scanning, ships ready, but calm. The Velari commander, a veteran named Thalen, was surprised. Most species would panic or flee, but the humans stood firm. They do not fear us, he whispered to his officers. They do not beg, yet they are ready to defend themselves. Ethan's voice came over the comms. We do not fear, we do not beg, but we will act if necessary, Thalen frowned. Bold words from a small species, perhaps foolish. He gestured to his ships. Prepare to engage, show them what it means to face the Velari. Ethan gave no reply, he did not need to. His fleet moved as one, positions perfectly calculated. The humans had studied the Velari formations. They knew where the weaknesses were, where the Velari relied on speed, and where they relied on firepower. Every ship, every fighter, every gun was placed to defend without unnecessary risk. The Velari opened fire first, expecting chaos. Their weapons were powerful, fast, and precise. But the humans had shields ready, defenses in place, and countermeasures that absorbed much of the damage. Human ships moved as if they had rehearsed this moment for years, which they had. Thalen watched in disbelief. They survive. They are organized. How is this possible? On the human side, Ethan remained calm. Hold positions. Wait for openings. Do not waste energy. They will overextend. Hours passed, and the Velari began to realize that humans were not weak. They were careful, deliberate, and patient. Each move was calculated. Each attack met resistance. And yet the humans did not strike first. They defended with precision and dignity, proving they were capable without being reckless. Back on the Velari homeworld, Lyra watched the reports with growing fascination. They are not weak, she said. Every move they make is deliberate. They are disciplined, patient, and brave. This human who walked away, he represents his people well. One of her advisors frowned. Princess, they are still few. Our fleets are larger. Our weapons are stronger. Surely we can overwhelm them. Perhaps, Lyra said, but they are not afraid, and courage, intelligence, and unity can overcome numbers and strength. Humans are dangerous, even if we do not yet understand how. Ethan's strategy was simple but effective. He did not seek to destroy the Velari. He wanted to show them that humans were capable, prepared, and dignified. Every maneuver, every defense, every choice was designed to prove that humans could stand alone, even against a powerful empire. Thalen's frustration grew. They do not break. They do not fear. They endure. How can a small species be so strong? They are not strong in the ways we expected, another Velari officer said. Their strength is in their mind and their will. They do not bow. They do not beg. They survive by being clever and united. Hours turned into a full day. By the time the first engagement ended, neither side had suffered a decisive defeat. But the Velari had learned something important. Humans were not weak. They were dangerous in ways that weapons alone could not measure. On the human side, Ethan debriefed his officers. We did well, he said quietly. We defended without panic, without fear. They expected desperation, begging, or mistakes. We gave them nothing. This is the way humans survive and thrive, Claire smiled. They must be shocked. We did not fight recklessly. We did not beg. We just stood our ground. Exactly, Ethan said. That is our message. Humans are not weak. Humans will not bow, and humans will not run. Back on the Velari homeworld, Lyra called another council meeting. She faced the council with calm authority. "The humans have survived their first test," she said. "They did not fear, they did not beg. They defended themselves with intelligence and unity. This is unlike any species we have encountered before." One council member spoke cautiously. "Princess, they are still few. Their weapons are less advanced. Surely we can defeat them if we attack decisively." Lyra shook her head. "We cannot underestimate them. They survived because they act with clarity, patience, and courage. Their numbers may be small, but their discipline and determination make them strong. We must treat them carefully." Her advisors whispered among themselves. The Velari were used to commanding respect through power alone, but humans did not give respect in that way. Humans did not fear, humans did not beg, and that was unsettling. Lyra's mind returned to Ethan. She thought about the calm, confident human who had walked into her palace without fear. That one act had changed the way she saw him, and perhaps the way she would see all humans. They were not weak, they were not desperate, they were unpredictable, and unpredictability could change the course of history. The next few weeks passed with more encounters. Velari patrols continued to approach human colonies, and each time the humans responded with calm and careful preparation. Every time the Velari were surprised. Humans were organized, disciplined, and willing to act when necessary. But they never begged, they never fled. They always maintained their dignity. Lyra watched all of this with growing respect. She realized that humans were not only brave, they were clever, resourceful, and united. Their strength was not in their numbers or weapons alone, but in their will and determination. One evening, Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace looking at the stars. "The human walked away," she said softly to herself. "And yet he has done more than many who bowed and begged. He has shown strength, intelligence, and dignity. Perhaps humanity is not what we thought." Her advisors looked at her quietly. They knew she was thinking differently. For the first time, Lyra admitted to herself that humans might not only survive in the galaxy, they might thrive, even against the most powerful empires. Ethan, back on the Liberty, prepared for the next engagement. He knew the Velari were watching closely, analyzing every move. He knew that each encounter was a test, and that humans had to continue showing strength, intelligence, and dignity. And through it all, one fact remained clear. Humans did not beg, humans did not bow, and humans did not fear. That simple refusal had already begun to shock the galaxy, and Princess Lyra was only beginning to understand what it meant. The human fleet moved quietly through the outer systems. Ethan Cole stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching the stars streak past the windows. Every movement was precise, every order deliberate. The Velari were watching closely, but they did not know what humans would do next. That was exactly what Ethan wanted. "Report on Velari patrols," he said, his voice calm but firm. Lieutenant Claire responded, "Scouts report 3 patrol fleets moving near the border. They are cautious. They are watching us, but they are not attacking yet." Ethan nodded. "Good, let them watch. We will show them strength, intelligence, and patience." That is how humans survive. Human ships were smaller than Velari ships, but they were fast and agile. Humans relied on careful planning, teamwork, and quick thinking. Every ship knew its role. Every officer knew the plan. They were not reckless. They were calm, disciplined, and confident. Meanwhile, back on the Velari homeworld, Princess Lyra studied the human movements with growing interest. Reports showed that the humans were not only defending themselves, but also moving strategically. They avoided unnecessary conflict, fortified key positions, and prepared for defense in ways the Velari had not expected. "They are clever," Lyra said quietly. "They do not attack recklessly. They do not flee. They wait for the right moment. And when they act with precision. This is unusual for a young species." One of her advisors, a tall Velari with dark scales, frowned. "Princess, they are still small in number. Surely we can outmaneuver them. They are brave, yes, but they cannot hold against our fleet." Lyra shook her head. Bravery alone is not what makes them strong. They are patient, disciplined, and united. That is their strength. We will not underestimate them again. Ethan gathered his officers for a meeting in the command room. The holographic display showed the positions of Velari patrols and human fleets. "We cannot fight recklessly," he said. "Our goal is to show the Velari that humans are not weak, but we must avoid unnecessary conflict. We will act with intelligence, precision, and courage. That is how we survive and how we earn respect." Claire looked at him. "Do you think they will attack?" "They might," Ethan said. "But they will learn that humans do not panic, do not beg, and do not flee. That lesson alone is important." The first major engagement began when a Velari fleet tried to intercept a human supply convoy. The Velari expected humans to panic, to retreat, or to surrender their cargo. But the humans had prepared. Ships moved into formation, hiding the convoy behind shields and smaller ships. When the Velari fired, the humans did not scatter. Countermeasures absorbed the initial blast, and human ships responded with precise maneuvers that surprised the Velari. Fighters attacked from unexpected angles, drawing attention away from the convoy. Heavy ships launched decoys, confusing Velari sensors. Every move was calculated, every response measured. Princess Lyra watched the reports with growing amazement. "They are not weak," she whispered. "Every move they make is deliberate. They are clever, patient, and brave. This is unlike anything we have seen before." The Velari commander, Thalen, shouted over the comms. "Attack! Destroy them quickly!" But the humans were ready. They defended without panicking, coordinated without hesitation, and adapted to every Velari tactic. Hours passed and the Velari were frustrated. Their attacks caused little damage. The humans' defenses held, their tactics countered, and their convoy remained safe. Thalen could not understand it. "How can such a small species survive against our fleet? They do not beg, they do not panic, yet they endure." Ethan's voice came over the comms calmly. "We endure because we are prepared. We endure because we act with intelligence and courage. And we endure because humans do not bow to fear." The Velari paused. They had expected panic, desperation, and mistakes. Instead, they saw careful planning, precise action, and calm courage. Humans were not weak. They were strong in ways the Velari had not understood. On the human side, Ethan debriefed his officers. "We protected the convoy without risking unnecessary losses," he said. "We proved that humans can survive against superior forces if they act with intelligence and courage. That is our message. Humans do not beg. Humans do not flee, humans do not bow," Claire smiled. "They must be shocked. Our strategy worked perfectly." "Yes," Ethan said, "they are learning a lesson they cannot ignore." Back on the Velari homeworld, Lyra called a council meeting. She faced her advisors with calm authority. "The humans have survived their first major test," she said. "They did not panic, they did not beg, and they did not flee. They acted with precision, intelligence, and courage. This is a species we cannot ignore." One council member spoke cautiously. "Princess, their numbers are small. Their weapons are less advanced. Surely we can defeat them if we attack decisively." "They are stronger than they appear," Lyra said. "Their discipline, intelligence, and unity give them strength beyond numbers or weapons. We must proceed carefully. We cannot underestimate them." The council members whispered among themselves. The Velari were used to commanding respect through power alone. Humans did not give respect in that way. Humans did not fear. Humans did not beg. And that was unsettling. Lyra's mind returned to Ethan. She thought about the calm, confident human who had walked into her palace without fear. That one act had changed the way she saw him, and perhaps the way she would see all humans. They were not weak. They were not desperate. They were unpredictable, and unpredictability could change the course of history. Ethan continued coordinating with the fleet. Every move was calculated to protect humans and prove their strength. Velari scouts tried to predict human tactics, but the humans adapted quickly. When a Velari fleet tried to block a key supply route, humans diverted ships, launched decoys, and secured the convoy. Every time Velari attacks failed, every time humans showed intelligence, courage, and unity, Lyra could not stop watching. "They are more capable than I thought," she said softly. "Every engagement proves it. Every decision they make shows their strength. Perhaps we have underestimated humanity." The Velari began to realize that humans were not a weak species to be controlled or ignored. Their calm, intelligence, and courage had earned attention, respect, and perhaps fear. One evening, Lyra stood on the balcony of her palace, looking at the stars. She thought about Ethan and the human fleet. "He walked away from me once," she said softly. "And yet his people are showing strength, intelligence, and courage that many who bowed before me never had. Perhaps humans are not what we thought." On the human side, Ethan and his officers prepared for the next move. "We have proven we can survive against superior forces," he said. "Now we must continue showing that humans are capable, intelligent, and united." Every decision, every action, every engagement teaches the Velari that humans are not weak. "That is our goal," Claire nodded. "We are making them respect us without fighting recklessly." Ethan smiled. "Exactly. Humans do not beg. Humans do not bow. Humans do not flee. That is how we survive, and how we change the galaxy's view of our species." As the weeks passed, humans continued to defend, plan, and act with precision. Each engagement showed the Velari that humans were not weak. Each successful maneuver, each calm response, each act of courage strengthened humanity's reputation. Lyra watched from her palace, fascinated and cautious. She could no longer dismiss humans as a weak species. They were clever, adaptable, and brave. Their refusal to beg, their calm intelligence, and their disciplined action made them dangerous in a way the Velari had not expected. And through it all, one fact remained clear. Humans did not beg. Humans did not bow. Humans did not flee. That simple refusal had already begun to shock the galaxy, and Princess Lyra was only beginning to understand what it truly meant. The stage was set. Humans had survived their first major test. The Velari had begun to see that this young species was not to be underestimated. And Ethan Cole, the human who had walked into the palace without fear, had started a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. The galaxy seemed quiet, but tension hung in the air. The Velari Dominion had spent weeks observing humanity, and every report they received confused and unsettled them. Humans had survived attacks, defended convoys, and acted with courage, intelligence, and unity. Yet they never begged, never bowed, and never fled. Princess Lyra stood on her balcony, looking at the stars. She thought of Ethan Cole, the human who had walked into her palace with calm confidence. That single act had shaken her assumptions. Now, watching the humans defend their borders and act decisively, she could not ignore the truth. Humans were not weak. They were brave, clever, and determined. "They have survived everything we sent against them," Lyra said quietly to her advisors. "They do not beg. They do not bow. They act with dignity. They are powerful in ways I did not understand." One council member, a tall Velari with dark scales, frowned. "Princess, their numbers are small. Our fleets are larger, our weapons stronger. Surely we can overwhelm them if we strike decisively." Lyra shook her head. "It is not numbers or weapons that give them strength. It is their courage, intelligence, and unity. Humans do not fear. Humans do not beg. And that makes them dangerous. We will proceed carefully. We cannot underestimate them." Meanwhile, Ethan stood on the bridge of the Liberty, studying the Velari fleet movements. Every patrol, every formation, every shift in position was noted and analyzed. The humans were ready. They had survived previous attacks, and now they were prepared to make a statement that the Velari could not ignore. Lieutenant Claire approached. "Commander, the Velari are concentrating more forces near the outer systems. It looks like they are planning something big." Ethan nodded. "Good, let them come. They will see that humans do not beg, humans do not bow, and humans do not flee. That is our message, and this time they will understand it fully." The first Velari attack came just as dusk fell on the outer colonies. Ships moved fast, sleek and sharp, weapons glowing. The humans did not panic. They moved into formation, shields up, fighters ready, and every command precise. The Velari expected chaos. They expected the humans to retreat or panic. They expected submission. But none of that happened. Humans acted with calm intelligence, coordinating every move, protecting civilians, and maintaining their dignity in the face of overwhelming power. Princess Lyra watched from the Velari capital. "They are still standing," she said softly. "They do not beg, they do not bow, and yet they are holding their ground. This is remarkable." The battle raged for hours. Velari ships struck with precision, but humans countered with strategy and intelligence. Every attack was met with a calculated response. Fighters attacked from unexpected angles, decoys confused the Velari sensors, and heavy ships covered the colonies. Humans were not stronger in numbers or weapons, but they were stronger in will, courage, and unity. Ethan's voice came over the comms. "Hold positions. Protect the colonies. Act with intelligence and courage. Remember, humans do not beg, humans do not bow, and humans do not flee. That is our strength." The Velari commander, Thalen, shouted orders, but frustration grew. "How can this be? Their numbers are small. Their weapons are weaker, yet they survive, they endure, they adapt." "They are humans," another Velari officer said quietly. "They are clever, brave, and united. That is their strength." Hours passed, and the tide of the battle began to turn. Humans were not reckless, but they were effective. Velari ships suffered losses, and the humans advanced slowly but steadily, protecting their people and demonstrating their strength. Each success was a statement. Humans were not weak. Humans did not beg. Humans did not bow. Ethan coordinated every move with calm authority. "Push forward, but do not overextend. Defend what must be defended. Act with precision. Show them what humans are capable of." As the battle continued, Princess Lyra realized something important. The human strength was not in weapons or numbers. It was in their courage, intelligence, and unity. They did not fear. They did not beg. They stood together, acted carefully, and adapted to every challenge. That combination made them more dangerous than any weapon. "They are teaching us something," she said quietly to her advisors. "They are showing us that strength is not only in power. Strength is in courage, intelligence, and dignity. That is why they survive. That is why they endure." Back in the battlefield, Ethan led the final phase of the engagement. Humans had drawn the Velari into a position where they could no longer attack effectively. Every ship, every fighter, every maneuver was perfectly coordinated. The Velari realized too late that they had been outmaneuvered, not by stronger weapons but by clever strategy and unity. Ethan's voice over the comms was calm but firm. "This is your lesson. Humans do not beg. Humans do not bow. Humans do not flee. Remember this as you return to your people." The Velari forces retreated, battered, and frustrated. They had not expected humans to survive. They had not expected humans to act with such intelligence, courage, and dignity. They had underestimated the species that walked away from the palace, refusing to beg, and now they had learned a lesson they would not forget. On the Velari homeworld, Princess Lyra stood silently, watching the retreat. She felt a mixture of awe, respect, and humility. The human species had proven themselves. They were clever, brave, united, and dignified. She realized that she had misjudged them. They were not weak. They were a force that could not be ignored. One of her advisors spoke cautiously. "Princess, they survived. They acted with intelligence, courage, and unity. Perhaps we underestimated humanity." "Yes," Lyra said softly, "we did. And it is time we reconsider how we see them. They do not beg, they do not bow, they do not flee. and that makes them extraordinary. Back with the humans, Ethan and his officers prepared to return to the colonies. The people cheered as their ships arrived, seeing their protectors and leaders safe. Humans had survived against overwhelming odds, defended their homes, and proven their strength without begging, bowing, or fleeing. Claire smiled at Ethan. They will remember this. The Velari, everyone who watches, they will remember that humans do not bow. Ethan nodded. Yes. That is the point. We showed them who we are without fear, without submission. Humans have dignity, courage, and intelligence. That is more powerful than any weapon. Weeks later, Princess Lyra called a new council. She spoke with authority and calm. The humans have proven themselves. They are brave, intelligent, and united. They do not beg, they do not bow, and they do not flee. This is a species we cannot underestimate. We must treat them with respect and caution. They have earned it. Her advisors whispered among themselves, surprised by her words. Lyra continued, "Prepare a delegation. This time, we will speak with humans not as rulers but as equals. We will offer discussion, not demands. They have shown strength beyond expectation. It is time we acknowledge it." Ethan received the message. He prepared to meet Princess Lyra again, but this time the meeting was different. It was no longer a test. The humans had proven themselves, and the Velari recognized it. Ethan walked into the council chamber, calm and confident, knowing that humanity had earned respect. Princess Lyra rose to greet him. Her expression was serious but respectful. "Ethan Cole," she said, "you and your species have proven yourselves. You do not beg, you do not bow, and you do not flee. That is a lesson I will not forget." Ethan inclined his head politely. "Thank you, Princess. Humanity stands for dignity, courage, and unity. We do not seek submission, we seek respect and cooperation." Lyra studied him carefully. "You have earned our respect. The Velari will no longer underestimate humans. That is a truth I hope will guide our future interactions." The council members watched silently, realizing that humanity had changed the way they thought. The humans had survived, defended their people, and acted with intelligence, courage, and dignity. They had walked away from fear and submission, and in doing so had rewritten what the galaxy thought about them. Ethan smiled quietly. "That is all we ask. To be seen as equals, to be respected, and to act with dignity. Humans will not bow, and now neither will anyone forget it." Princess Lyra nodded. "Indeed. Perhaps one day we will see your people not as newcomers but as equals. That day may be sooner than we think." The human delegation left the chamber, their heads held high. The Velari would remember this day. They would remember the humans who did not beg, who did not bow, and who did not flee. And that lesson would change the galaxy. Outside, Ethan looked at the stars. Humanity had survived the first encounter with a powerful alien empire. They had defended their people, shown courage, intelligence, and unity, and proven that dignity was stronger than fear. And in that moment, he knew the future was bright. Humans would not beg. Humans would not bow. Humans would not flee. They would stand tall, face the galaxy with courage, and remind everyone that even a young species could be strong, clever, and unstoppable when united. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humans were not weak. They were dangerous. They were dignified, and they would be remembered.